Good evening, guys. How's it going? Hope you guys are having a good night. Shanna, thanks for stopping by. Mark, good day. Big Shrimpin', how's it going? It's been a little while. I stuck in a short stream the other night. Uh, Afternoon, I guess, just doing a little tank maintenance. But it's been a bit since we've just sat down and had a decent little conversation here. So, as always, evening, geek boy. A little bit later than usual. But better than not at all, right? We haven't had just a good talk on a discussion topic in a bit. So tonight we're going to talk about kind of the mindset, or say, I guess, the attitude that we approach kind of fish keeping with a little bit. What's up, Kenny? Hope you're doing well, bud. Hope things are starting to get a little bit better for you. I know you had some little string of bad luck there for a bit, and hope we were able to help you out, do it a little bit, and get things squared away. Stephen P, as always, pleasure to have you, bud. Lurking is just fine. If you guys are interested, or gals, that's Shanna, Kenny, and you guys, and popping up on the chat and having a little discussion. The link to join the stream is posted and pinned in the top of the chat. I'll do my best to keep up with you guys tonight, and we'll see how things go. Right now, you're staring at it's a little bit blurry. I couldn't get my camera to quite focus as close as I wanted to right now. But this is a 10-gallon tank with some blue bolts, and as you can see, there's some that have a lot of white on the bodies, some that have mostly blue on the bodies. And then if you look at as you're looking at the video at the top right there, you can kind of see one that's got a little bit of red, so that's going to be a cull. So we'll remove that from this colony and work on cleaning up the lines a little bit to get things going in the right direction. Snow removal. Oh, Kenny, I feel you, man. It is it's about 20 degrees here right now. We just have a little bit of dust outside, so nothing too crazy yet. But my folks out on the west side of South Dakota, I think they're up to 7 inches for today. So then some of the areas a little bit higher up in elevation towards the Deadwood area have about a foot so far. So they're starting to take a little bit extra. Shanna said she might join us in the chat. That would be wonderful. Always welcome company. Just to not only have somebody for you guys to listen to a little bit different voice. You don't have to listen to me drone on all night. But it gives us a few more different points of view in the interaction. So while Shanna's getting set up, and since we started a little bit early, figure out trying to work maybe showing you guys a few different angles and different camera stuff. Now that I'm home, I can actually kind of maybe not necessarily show off things, but allow you guys to see some different things here at Mikasa. There's the 125 as it sits right now out in the living room. You can see roughly, like, camera's not working super great, but you're able to see those are some Rhinocentris, Tiwa Creek in there, cruising around in my fish tank aquatics. What's up, man? Hope you're having a lovely evening. We appreciate you joining us. So this is the 125, the Siamese algae eater. There is a small group of Corridors Sordalis, and then a group of Rhinocentris ornatus from Tiwa Creek. Those are the more orange and black. You can see, kind of looking at the right side of the screen, in front of a Hamalamina. That is the Siamese algae eater. Now moving towards the center, in front of that big old melon pink sword, which is, as you can see, those leaves are roughly 6 inches wide. That big one there. So that thing kind of come out of there. As beautiful as it is in person, it does throw some excellent pinks and reds and purples. It is unfortunately too large for me to enjoy in my tank. That doesn't mean that somebody wouldn't enjoy it in a similar size tank. It's just not the look I'm going for. So lush is one way to put it. It's actually back on the right track. So looking at the tank on the left side, there's some Echinodorus Socarno swords with a couple different Elocarus sicularis and parvula mixed in, some Ariacolon maleator, and then move into the right side of the screen. You see some Echinodurus Scutcalo. There's some Echinodurus iguazu, a variety of crypts, and the back's that big mailing pink swords, Cryptspirales tiger. The foreground is Marsilia hirsuta, I believe. Then we get over into some Lygonandras, some more crypts, and kind of a little bit darker side. This tank is actually lit. The left side of the tank is lit a bit brighter than the right side, and the plant selection and kind of scape has been tailored to that a little bit. So on the left side in the background there, you see some Alternanthera Renekii ossipus, as well as some Klein's pain in the butt. Again, that Cryptocorin spiralis tiger, that big old mowing pink sword. And then it gets darker towards the right side of the tank, and there's actually nothing in the foreground, there's some negative space. So Ian's in the house. What's up, Ian? We may talk a little bit salty tonight. I always value your opinion. I've been, watching you progress, set up some new tanks. June is here, only Oscars. Matt said he's home. And Matt, if you guys are in the Discord, Matt actually just acquired his CO2 tank. So he's got a 20-pound tank that I happened to notice while I was at the fire extinguisher shop the other day picking up mine. And was tempted to just grab his. This is a 20-pound. Mine's only a 10. This is much shinier and newer. So as much as I would have loved to swap it out, it would not fit under the stand as it sits now, which would mean it would have to go downstairs to get it out of the eyesight. And 10-pound will work just fine for now. Brian is here, Pelham Creek. Good evening. Good evening. Kelly Foreman's in the house. Thanks for stopping by. Well, I'll be honest, Kelly. I would rather watch Axarose myself than watch me mumble about fish tanks. So if you want to go watch Axarose, or at least listen to Axarose while you stare at my ugly mug or just have me up in the background, I would not blame you one bit. Good evening, Jenna. Hope you're having a good night. Keeping Steven out of trouble. Matt's trying to make this a size thing, so we'll leave that alone for right now. Maybe we'll circle back to that later. I did see Big Shrimpin asked what kind of lights. So this is a 125-gallon tank, and it is lit with 3 prisms from Nylock G Aquatics. If you're not familiar with Colin, Colin has been running Nylock G for several years now, most notably known for Thrive, which is a excellent all-in-one fertilizer. It comes in a few different flavors. That's one of the reasons I recommend it. This tank actually runs part-time on Thrive while I'm gone. I have my wife dose that, and then I dose the EI salts from Colin when I'm home, just because it gives me a little bit more control, but it is a little bit more labor intensive, and it's easier for the wife to just shoot a couple squirts of squirt ferts in there to take care of the tank. The lights themselves are prisms from Nylock G, and I'll send you guys a link to those. These are the 16-inch versions, not the 32-inch versions. The Zen Ginger actually went with the 32-inch version of these lights for her 4-inch breeder. So I think she'll have a lot of success. As you look at the tank right now, from left to right, there's 2 channels on each light. They're set to about 40-35 on the left. The middle is about 35-30, and the far right is about 30-25 or so. So there's you can tweak it a little bit. Not the full customizability of something like a Chihiros or a Flue Ball, but as you can see, it works just fine. Don't mind the mess. There is a big island of hair grass still floating around on the right side, and then some AR bunched up in the middle, just floating around the tank. It's a lot of light if you crank it up. Stephen P asked, how precise do I get with my EI doses? Do I combine any salts, or do I dose them individually? So I've actually got a couple shorts on this, and one of these days I'll get into a long actual length video about it. So I dose my micros all together. I'll mix my micros up together and my macros, and I'll just alternate days. So as far as precision, you don't have to get super close. It's not like PPS dosing. One of these EIs that close is good enough. So I use, this tank gets, let's see, half a teaspoon of KH2PO4, half a teaspoon of K2SO4, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of KNO3. Then on the opposing days, it gets half a teaspoon of Plantex CSM plus B. So, and then I follow the EI dosing, so 3 days of each, and then I starve it for a day and hit it with my big water change. Miss Shanna Banana, what's up?
Hey, hey, hey.
How are you?
Can you? I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting in just in and out just a little bit there, but not too bad.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Let me
You're
see.
good now, though.
Okay, cool. So I am
Yeah, no problem.
currently digging through this giant floating wad o' plants.
Looking good. Is that the tank that you? That's not the tank that you scaped on a stream with Skipper that long ago, because you
No,
used
this is a newer
sand.
tank.
Okay. That
Yes.
the wood looked familiar, so I thought maybe that you were reusing the wood, but maybe just have a couple pieces that look similar.
Nope. I totally jacked it.
Did you?
I can't believe you caught that. That's impressive. I was like,
I wondered.
that doesn't really look as good in there as it would in here. Get it? Wood. And I have the plecos in here. And so, yeah, I totally jacked it. Good eye.
See what you did there. No, it
I
looks
wish
good.
I had multiples.
That's beautiful. Did you pick that up at one of the swaps, or did you find that on your own? Or?
I'm trying to remember. I think one of them I got from Kenny and Danny, and I think one of them I found on the river.
Oh,
But I don't
awesome.
remember which is which, and I could be lying in general.
Well, I mean,
I know there's
you
a
have
piece
been
of
known
wood
to
in
do
the
that
back.
sometimes.
A little bit. I just get so excited. I don't mean to. I'm just
It
like, oh my
happens
gosh,
sometimes.
words. Yeah.
That's
And then
okay.
I think I'm telling the truth. And then I think back later and I'm like, wait, hold on. Is that actually what happened?
Yeah, it happens sometimes. That's okay.
We get a little carried away, especially when
Yeah.
it comes to good wood.
I'll refrain. It's still pretty early in the night, so I'll leave that one alone. Just like Matt's comment about size. But, I'm sure eventually this stream will degrade to that point.
Yeah, don't let us
We'll
take you
see.
down there yet. I wasn't being weird. I really was just talking about the.
No, I believe you. I believe you. So Stephen was asking about dosing, and Mandy mentioned that she bought the measuring spoons with her first. So I believe that she picked up the NPK CSM plus B estimated index kit from Colin over at Nylock, and he actually sells a kit like this that is specifically sized for your tank. I don't know. Let's try this. So he actually, I believe they're 3D printed, but he
Ooh.
sells these spoons, and they are catered to your exact tank size,
Oh,
up to
wow.
100. So, well, the picture's kind of hard to see. But so like this is a 40-gallon estimated index KH2PO4. So you'll dose this much every other day.
Oh my
The other
gosh.
spoons are for the big ones, probably for your KNO3. So that'll be your nitrates, etc. So kind of cool that he offers that. I mean, $15 for a set of custom spoons catered specifically to that. That's not bad at all. Takes some of the guesswork out of it. I personally just use tiny little measuring spoons that I steal from my wife regularly until they disappear, and she orders a new set, and then I steal that set. So,
Do you know you can just get measuring spoons at Dollar Tree?
I do.
I mean, they aren't custom measuring spoons, but I mean, instead of torturing your poor wife, you could just
Well,
go get some measuring spoons at Dollar Tree.
I could. I actually got a gram scale because I'm like, maybe I'll be fancy one of these days, but I have to actually like mass stuff out, and it's way easier just to
Okay,
scoop.
you're talking
So,
about custom spoons, gram scales. We're leaving a lot alone here. There's a lot being left on the table tonight.
hey, that some tools in this hobby have multiple uses. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Just, you know,
I'm not saying if you're going to spend the money for something, you might as well buy something that you can use for multiple things.
right? Like
So,
measuring out medications, antibiotics, and stuff for your fish.
hmm hmm Uh, so no, I don't know the exact measurements. These spoons don't list the exact measurements of what each one is, but Colin does have a handy dandy somewhere here dosing guide that actually has the chart that I use dosing information. Probably right here. That would make sense. So here's an estimated index chart that I follow roughly. So I don't dose anywhere near as much KNO3 as most people, usually dose following this guide. I just find that it's a little bit excessive, but your tank may vary depending on obviously what you have in it. So June asked if they offer those dosing spoons for a 300. I think the largest they go up to right now is a 180. But chances are, if you email Colin, if he's having somebody 3D print these for him, he could probably do a set for you for maybe a couple extra bucks.
That'd be like measuring cups instead of measuring spoons.
That would be quite large. But if you're dosing a 300, the amount you'd save dosing dry salts compared to something like Thrive or Easy Green or Tropica, you would save a hell of a lot of money. What's up, Paul? Thanks for stopping by. We're
See,
talking about not drug stuff. I promise.
we're talking about nutrients and fertilizer and fish tanks. And I've been so, oh my gosh. So I had a migraine on Saturday and then I woke up Sunday with the flu. And today's Tuesday. I now know what day of the week it is. And I'm mostly coherent, but I am cabin crazy. Ooh. So I'm going to try and stay on topic and not talk about the things that we're not supposed to talk about. But what
Yeah,
we are
well,
talking about is fertilizer.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Had to dose a nano tank, a gram scale, and divide the dose into 3 little piles of white powder. Uh, I mean, it gets to that. It gets to that point. You're dosing tiny little tanks, which, which if you've ever had cyanobacteria or blue-green algae,
Mm-hmm.
Boyd's Chemiclean is. I swear I'm not usually a like fix it with chemicals kind of guy, but Boyd's Chemiclean is magic for cyanobacteria, and that thing comes with the tiniest. Like I don't know what the measurement is, but it is tiny. It might be like a pinch or a dash. I don't know. It is itty
A
bitty.
skosh.
It could be a skosh. Now Matt prefers his squirt ferts, which I can't. I think that was one of Steven's streams, which we were talking about squirt ferts.
I'm just so excited that I'm not killing my plants and that I kind of to put squirt ferts in that like they're alive. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I think, well, I don't know. So I have enough anacaris that I have leftover anacaris.
Mm.
Like I could have it at the club, except for I think it's illegal. I
Is
think
it?
I've got illegal plants
Now there's. I don't know. I'd have
because
to
it's
look at.
invasive. And then I don't think I can take it in.
What happens under the table stays under the table. So funny story about that. I was actually at a swap meet when I was in Arizona. I was at a club meeting There's a little swap meet, and there was a bucket of angelfish, and they were like average angelfish. I don't know, they were big. They were large angelfish, and they weren't bad. They're decent average angelfish, but I bid on the auction, not for the angelfish. I think I gave the angelfish away, but there was a small bunch of Hygrophila polysperma sunset sitting in the bucket with the angelfish, and I bid on the whole thing simply based on the fact that I wanted the Hygrophila polysperma sunset. I didn't really care much at all about the angelfish themselves. I just wanted that plant. You just
wanted the plant.
Which that plant is technically on the U.S. federal noxious weeds list, so you're definitely not supposed to cross state lines with it. I'm not saying I did, of course. Not supposed to cross state lines with it. And in some states, you're not supposed to propagate and distribute it. So I happened to notice it in the bucket, and I don't know if anybody else noticed it. It was in the bucket. So I snatched it. And the one stem of Hygrophila polysperma sunset that I have in my tank downstairs is actually from that bucket of angelfish that I got in 2018. So, and I always keep just one sprig on it. I mean, I could fill a 20-gallon tank with it in like a week if I grew it out, but I always keep one sprig on me just in case. Amateur aquatic addiction. What's up? Good day. It is going pretty well. Eventually, we're going to get to the topic of the stream, but right now we're talking about dosing and plants and stuff, and that's just as fun. Might maybe even more fun than the direction this stream was planned to go, but we'll see. Oh, he's still there.
Okay, Shanna? I'm trying to fix my internet.
Oh, did you break it?
I mean, maybe a little bit.
So Ian asked about lean dosing versus estimated index dosing. So I will provide the caveat that I have never truly implemented something like PPS. So I don't have a exact firsthand experience as far as like a lean dosing regime versus estimated index. Now I have run the estimated index and just slowly leaned it out until I started to see detrimental effects. As far as algae growth, if you focus on growing your plants and provide everything your plants need to grow properly, the plants will outcompete the algae. So I don't have, other than a couple traces of blackbeard algae on this tank here, I don't have any algae problems, and that blackbeard is more or less just from my CO2 fluctuating over the past few weeks than anything else. It's actually gotten quite on track. So lean versus EI dosing. I would say with lean dosing, you should be testing and adjusting your dosing regime regularly, because the idea is that you're providing just enough nutrients for your plants and not an ounce more, so that your plants utilize all of the nutrients, and then there's nothing left over for the algae. In theory, if you can test it regularly and continuously adjust how much you're dosing to the gram, it could work well. However, if you don't stay on top of the testing, or you don't adjust your dosing, every couple of weeks, then you're going to see detrimental effects on your plants. The estimated index, the whole theory is that that there's no limiting factor with regards to growth as far as a nutrient. I'm trying to think of, there's the law of minima. No, there's a, God, Tom Barr uses a word for it. Let me see if I can think of it. I can't think of it. But basically, Tom Barr's developed this estimated index so that no nutrient is being withheld from the plant. So there's never a shortage. So the plants are always able to attain everything they need to grow properly. Whereas with PPS dosing, you're kind of right on the border, and sometimes you can actually see algae growth because of nutrient deficiencies as opposed to excess nutrients. So as far as lean dosing versus EI dosing, I generally suggest EI dosing. Caveat that Don't just, you can use a chart like the one that I showed earlier, this guy. You can use that chart. That's a good baseline to start from, and then tweak it as required, because this isn't set for a certain plant mass, right? So if you look at this 125 right now, it's actually, I'd call it moderately planted. So this dosing regime may work right now, but as I let this tank grow out and there's more plant mass in there, it's going to require more nutrients. So over time, as I maybe see deficiencies, I might adjust and bump up KNO3 from the suggested dosing value. I may add another quarter teaspoon or another half teaspoon to get my nitrates to where I want. And on the flip side, if I notice that, hey, I have an excess of nitrates or an excess of potassium, I may back from the dosing if my tank's not planted quite as heavy. So for a simple simplicity point of view and ease of workload, I recommend the estimated index because there's less testing involved and there's a little more room for error. Obviously, you are doing a weekly water change, and that can be tweaked to every couple weeks depending on how heavy you're dosing. But generally speaking, between the two concepts, I lean toward, I gravitate towards the estimated index or an estimated index type dosing regime over something like PPS. Scarcity law of minimum. I think law of minimum. I thought there was a name associated with it where there's not a certain thing restricting your growth. Law of minimum might be it. Stephen P. is onto something. So it's been the problem when you get, and I'm not saying I'm good at planted tanks. The problem when you get good at doing something is that you stop researching things sometimes, and then you stop growing or improving your own skill set, and you start to forget information. So it's good to stay in the books, so to speak.
That's so cool.
Science and stuff.
I don't know about any of that stuff.
And that's kind of a little bit about part of what this stream is about, sort of. So the title of the stream is a better mindset to achieve aquarium success, right?
Right.
So a lot of the times, people kind of go into it and they sort of just, especially with Facebook and the ease of, access to advice and information, whether it's accurate or not, is that sometimes we just go into things and we don't necessarily understand the how or the why behind it. And it's easy to come up with false correlations.
Oh, yeah.
So like correlation, and I'll be honest, the idea of this stream, and what kind of got me thinking about it was the other night, Terry had a stream about cause and effect. And he kind of got off on a tangent a little bit. But just the initial idea is like, oh, hey, a lot of the times, like I said, we kind of look at things a little bit and we just do what people tell us to online without understanding the how or why behind it, especially with testing. So as far as the mindset to achieve better aquarium success or more frequent aquarium success, it is to approach things a little bit more analytically and maybe ask more of the how and why questions versus the what questions. It's easy to say, hey, I'm setting up a tank. People are like, what should I do? And people are like, oh, well, you need a test kit. So you go get a test kit. I'm like, all right, test your water. And you test it and you post pictures of your water test kit compared to the graph. And I'm like, okay, now what should I do? And somebody tells you what you should do next. I'm like, okay, add this. But people don't ask they ask the what questions. What should I do? What is wrong with this instead of the how or why? So when we tell people that this tank needs to cycle, we tell them what to do, right? Like, oh, like add one small fish or whatever, and just let it sit for a while, and then you should see the ammonia rise, the ammonia fall, the nitrite rise, the nitrite fall, the nitrate rise, and then you should see 0, 0, and 10 or 20 or whatever. Right. But people don't necessarily understand or care to understand the analytical side of it and to exactly what's going on. And I think that not approaching things a little bit more of an analytical, like how, why type mindset has proven over the years to be detrimental to people's success. You don't need to. I see a lot of people. Hey, Shell. Hope you're having a good day. I see a lot of people that's like, well, I can't pronounce the Latin names of this, or I can't pronounce this compound or chemical or whatever that I'm putting into my tank when I dose. I don't need to understand that. Just tell me what to do. You don't need to know the scientific name of every fish or every plant going into your tank, but you should. I think it's important to ask the how, why type of questions and approach a situation with an analytical mindset, where you want to at least understand the concepts behind things. And as, like I said, I think testing is a great thing and a great example of this. You don't need to know exactly what a molecule of nitrate looks like and how that single molecule of nitrate does or doesn't affect your fish and plants. However, it's when we talk about the nitrogen cycle in our aquariums, it's important to know what that is, not necessarily exactly what it does, but it's important to know what it is, and then you have a better understanding of why we care about it in an aquarium. It's easy for you to go buy an API master freshwater test kit, like, all right, you told me to test my water. I tested my water. I have 40 nitrates. Well, if you don't know what 40 nitrates mean or how 40 nitrates in your tank happen, then you don't know, one, if that's a problem, or two, how to fix it, because you have no idea where it's coming from, right? So the same exact thing with ammonia. And I was going to, I want to make a video, and I've been thinking about it. The hand of God is in your tank, Shanna. One of these days, I'm going to make a video kind of explaining honestly, the nitrogen cycle itself and that process, because there's tons of excellent videos about that. But now that we have all these projects on the market, or products, on the market, like Fritz Turbo Start and Dr. Tim's that can instantly cycle a tank, as somebody new to the hobby, like, oh, I can, if I dump this bottle into my tank, it's safe for fish, if you use something like Fritz Turbo Start 700 in a freshwater tank, it's fairly instantly safe for your fish. Like, it's literally, the awesome part of it is that it's a cycle in a bottle. The downside of that is that we're no longer, because we have access to products like that, we're no longer following the process to understand how that process develops in your tank and how that affects your fish. Because if you have an understanding of how that process works, which compounds are detrimental to your fish's health and which ones aren't, then you can understand what's going wrong, exactly what's happening, and how you can fix it with regards to your fish. What's up, Kenny? Hope you're having a good night, man. It's been a little while since we chat, but I'm glad you stopped by. So if you, with your first aquarium, instead of just dumping a bottle of Turbo Start in there, like, oh, well, now I can add fish, I think it's important to follow the cycle from step one, whether that takes you 4 weeks to cycle the tank, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. Sure, it sucks because it's taken a while, but whether you think so or not, you're learning a lot about the cycle, not only developing patience, which is, a super important skill in this hobby, but you're learning a lot on the way, and you have a better understanding of the processes that are going on in the tank. So you understand when things go wrong, you can point them out a little bit, and you have an idea of how to fix them. With test kits and Facebook and whatever, it's easy to take a picture of your test kits, post it on the internet, like, okay, internet, tell me what to do, versus you doing the testing, you recognizing a problem, having an idea how to fix it, and then posing the question like, hey, I think this is what's going on in my tank. Can I get your guys' opinion and advice, and then move forward? You won't just be blindly following piss poor advice on the internet, which is,
I mean, come on, Mike. What else am
terrible.
I supposed to do on a Friday night?
I mean, as entertaining as some piss poor advice on the internet is, if without an understanding of those concepts, like I said, you don't need a degree in biochemistry. You don't need like that knowledge level to be successful. But if you have a basic understanding of what's going on, it's easier to weed out the good information or good advice from the bad advice and bad information. So I just think, you know, the internet it opens up so many possibilities, and it gives us, you know, access to nearly unlimited information. But it has caused people to be so lazy, and because you can get instant suggestions on what to do and you can follow them blindly, it's led to a lot of struggles, I think, because people that don't know what they're doing try to set up a fish tank. They struggle with it right away because they just don't have the knowledge right away. So they go on Facebook and ask somebody on Facebook, and Facebook says, oh, well, you need to test your water. So they go buy a test kit for $30. They test their water. They come back. They're like, okay, these are my results. And somebody says, okay, do this. And you have no idea what you're actually doing, but you could be following somebody's terrible advice, because guess what? Random stranger on the internet doesn't know what they're doing either. And now you're just getting more. It's the problem's compounding, and you're getting more and more frustrated with the tank. So the more you get frustrated, the more or the less interest you have in it, and next thing you know, you're out of the hobby. And that's the cycle of frustration isn't nothing new. I mean, it's been around forever. Like, people buy a fish tank, the first fish die because they just don't know about cycling a tank or properly caring for fish, and then they sell it on Craigslist for $20. You know, Facebook had the opportunity. Well, it still poses the opportunity to have, you know, be this awesome knowledge base and resource. Unfortunately, it has quickly turned into a faux knowledge base full of bad information and piss poor advice, and because people don't have, and I'll call it an analytical mindset, or approach things with the how, why, like we talked about earlier. They literally just randomly follow people's advice without even knowing that it's terrible, and then they just end up in a worse situation. So that's my rant, Shanna. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if you agree, disagree.
No, I feel like learning how to source your information accurately, like, because, you know, when I went back to school, one of the things they pounded into my head was Wikipedia is not a source. Just Googling something isn't necessarily a source. Like, just because it says it on the internet doesn't make it true. And when you come into it not knowing up from down, you really got to figure out, like, where is the best place to start? How do I link up with people who are actually successfully keeping fish? And I haven't come across that with Facebook so much. I found, like, people on YouTube whose tanks you can see, like, who show and talk about what they're doing. The transparency there is helpful. And then, like, scientific information is always good too.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I mean, you don't have to be a scientist, and you don't have to have a graduate level understanding of anything we do. Like I said, it's not about knowing the information. It's about the approach or the mindset, that you will. And instead of asking, so if you want to do, well, let's say it this way. So success obviously is defined by each person differently. Like, success for me in my 125 planted tank is going to look a lot different than success for you in the what is that, like a 20 high that you're looking at right now? Maybe a 10.
Right now is a 10.
Okay, so success is going to look a little bit different. That's just based on our goals. So before you can achieve success, you kind of have to define success by setting goals for yourself. And then, instead of, to bring this mindset into it, this more analytical how, why type mindset, instead of asking, what do I need? So You say, this is, you achieve, you step one, you set some goal for yourself. Instead of asking, what do I need to make this happen? I think a better question or better way to look at it is, how can I make this happen, as far as learning the actual processes? Because I can tell you, oh, you need to do this, but that's not going to be you learning, depending on the topic, obviously. But
I think one of the biggest things for me with doing it was wanting to understand, well, and it has, historically speaking, it hasn't always been the best strategy, but like asking follow-up questions, like, okay, but why are you doing that? Like, because the way I think about it is, like, if I have a question and you have an answer for me, that's cool. But if I have a question and you can teach me how to think out the answer, then I don't need your help. I have the skills to find it.
right, and I think that's kind of a lot of it, is knowing maybe where to look, or having the initiative to go out and find the how or the why, versus saying, like, asking somebody to spoon feed, directions to you. See, like, any monkey can follow directions, but if you follow directions without an understanding of what's going on, eventually you're going to run into a problem. Somebody may not be there to help you, or you may follow bad advice, and now you're running into a problem and you have no idea how to fix it, or no idea how it even started. And a lot of the times, a lot of the times we run into a situation where we kind of bump into the problem that Terry was talking about the other night, where you kind of have this correlation does not equal causation kind of deal, where people have an effect, or have an undesirable result, and they blindly start throwing things at it because they are either impatient or simply lack the knowledge or motivation to understand exactly what's going on to cause that problem.
Well, and I think one of the hardest things to remember too, when you have something going wrong, is that if you start changing multiple things, you're not going to know what fixed what. So you aren't getting any useful information for next time. You might get lucky and sort out whatever's going on, but you're not going to know for sure, oh, okay, I fed too much, yada, yada.
Right, yeah. Just real quick, so Aquaballs, George stopped by, said what's up. Kenny from Danik Aquatics said hello. Thanks for stopping by, Kenny. We got a bunch of new faces in chat. The link to join the stream, if you want to chat with us about this topic, or if you want to talk about another topic, is pinned in the chat, so feel free to join. Sketty Nona's here. Mel from X Genetics. Few people rolling through. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, so we're kind of talking about not necessarily fish tanks specifically, or any specific topic of tanks. It's a lot more about a little bit more analytical mindset to achieve success. And this isn't just related to fish tanks. This could be any hobby or whatever it may be. And it can be tough because approaching things from a little bit more of an analytic mindset, or a point of view of like the how, why, it can be tough to separate the emotion out of it. And with regards to fish tanks, we do get, they're, at the end of the day, they're fish or shrimp or inverts or whatever in that tiny little glass box. Dr. Anthony's here. Thanks, man. Appreciate you stopping by. Doc Awesome is here. Thanks for swinging in. Appreciate it. Anyway, sorry, off topic. I haven't seen Dr. Awesome in here before, so it's nice to have it.
About time, Dr. Anthony. We've been waiting all night.
We're getting there. I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
Well, we were talking you were saying about how we're talking more about like the thinking style that gets you to be truly successful as opposed to lucking into pulling off a tank that doesn't murder everything you stuff in it.
Right. Oh, I was talking about, I remember now, trying to separate, approaching things analytically a little bit and trying to separate emotions. So the fish that we keep, it's easy to get attached to, particularly if you have a beautiful betta like the blue one that you've got there, or you've got a whole colony of shrimp, or maybe you're into Oscars like June. We do get emotionally attached to those. So it's easy when we see something like at the store that we love, that we want to have, to just buy it instead of doing the research and understanding how we can best keep it. Or maybe you've had something like your blue betta there for a little while, Shanna, and all of a sudden it starts having, maybe it's tattered fins, or it starts showing some kind of illness. And we want so hard, because we're attached to that fish, we want so hard to fix it right away and to make things better, that we start blindly throwing medications or attempts at solutions without looking into the true cause and figuring out how to actually fix the problem and properly cure it, versus just throwing medications at it. It's in the United States, at least. I know it's a lot more difficult in Canada now, but in the United States these days, you can pretty much go to any pet store and buy a bunch of different medications off the shelf. In Canada, things are.
If I ever give up on traditional medicine, I'm just going to shop at Petco for all my own DIY antibiotic solutions. Because you can get between Petco and the feed store, like, you're golden, man. You can, like, Apocalypse Ready.
Right. It's crazy. And Chris Biggs, so the Matt Aquarius, he's up in Canada, so our neighbors to the north. You actually have to have, if I'm not mistaken, like a no kidding prescription to get a lot of simple antibiotics that we use in aquariums. And since in the United States we have such easy access to those, we see something wrong with our fish, we're like, oh, all of a sudden you go out and you get a general cure, or you go kanamycin or nitrofurazone or whatever. You just start dumping medications in the tank, and without understanding and looking into why is my fish sick and how can I fix this illness? We often go out and just grab these medications and start dumping the medications in the tank. And most of these medications just are very hard on the inhabitants. I mean, just for example, if you dump if you use ick medications in a planted tank, to give you an idea of how harsh those medications are, your plants are going to suffer pretty quickly. It's just a matter of most ick medications, while they are extremely toxic, the dose that you're using just makes it less toxic to fish than the parasites or bacteria that we're trying to treat. But it is, stressful on that fish, even though the end result, when used properly, is generally successful.
Well, and a lot of times I think it's really easy to overlook, like, this isn't necessarily the best metaphor, but if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Like, as soon as your fish is sick, try checking your water. Try putting the fish in a quarantine tank that's full of really great clean water and a sponge filter and nothing else. Like, see what's actually going on. And the most basic stuff, if you can look at that stuff yourself, then you can ask better questions too, because it's really hard to ask a question if you don't know anything about it.
Oh, for sure. Paul Cicero mentioned, said we overuse antibiotics, and that's the reason resistant strains of bacteria are popping up. Over time, statistics have shown that this is fairly accurate. I mean, things mutate regularly, and they adapt and evolve to overcome certain treatments. I haven't had ick. We'll use ick for example. I haven't had ick in, knock on wood, many years. The last few times I had ick several years ago, I generally use a heat treatment instead of medication, and I was extremely successful. I know a lot of people anymore have been suggesting that there's many heat resistant strains of ick, which simply because I haven't had to deal with it, I haven't researched much, so I'm not sure if that holds water or not. But from just like a human biological point of view, there are strains that as we develop antibiotics and as we use these antibiotics, there are strains that become fairly resistant to them. So I could potentially see where heat may affect that. Obviously, over time, and, different organisms can adapt to a wide variety of temperature conditions. Dr. Anthony says his fish bet's first response to me is always, when is the last time you did a water change? And this is, oh my gosh, so I'm not saying that there's only one right way to run a tank. I'm not saying there's only one way to be successful setting up any type of tank. I'm not saying that there are only a few ways you can do it that's right. But I would definitely say that there are a wide variety of approaches that tend to be more problematic than others. And the whole minimal water change route or no water change route, I generally categorize as one of the ones that over time tends to be more problematic because that's a whole stream in itself, I'll be honest, because there's such a wide variety of detrimental factors by not doing water changes. And you'll see a lot of the times, particularly with bettas, tattered fins, and clean water goes so far for something like tattered fins or illness because that fish isn't fighting off the stressors of a nasty environment, as well as potential bacterial infections. It doesn't have to expend all that energy to attempt to fight off multiple stressors. So.
There can only be one. It's Highlander. It's not fish keeping.
Oh my God! Don't. Oh my gosh!
That's not true. That's not true. That is not the only.
Boy's trying to get me fired up. I'll leave it alone. It's just best that I leave it alone tonight. It's because there's a couple things you can bring up to get me fired up, and there are a few people. There are a few people in this hobby that have very big names, despite very, very. I'll call them poor approaches for the masses. Their approaches may work for a few people, but that doesn't mean that it's an excellent approach, despite some people's misconceptions. I'll leave it
real
at that.
quick, little sidebar. For people in chat, when somebody asks a question, just because you were able to successfully do one thing one time doesn't mean that you can put all of your betas, male and female, in a community tank. Like, just because it happens one time does not mean that's something you should recommend.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've done it. Or yeah, honestly, the reason or reasoning behind somebody claiming their advice is good advice is, well, I've done this for 40 years, is a complete crock. But I can do something wrong for 40 years too. That doesn't make it good advice. It just means I've been doing the same thing wrong for 40 years. You may have squeaked by with it, but the detriments on whatever you're doing is just awful. Like I said, I'm not saying there are only certain right ways to do something, but there are definitely wrong approaches, and there's definitely piss poor advice out there.
Anytime somebody tells you never or always, you can pretty much bet they're full of it. because like there's the exception that proves the rule, and I mean, I guess never pour bleach in your aquarium. I don't know. But like if they say this, you can only do it this way, you can basically just ignore what they're saying.
Right. Stephen, no filter, no water change, everything just breathes. So do that.
No, don't tell people. That's exactly what I mean not to tell people. You probably can get away with that. Oh my gosh. You guys, they're just trolling me, right? Are they messing with
I know.
me?
At least I hope. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day. I think it was in one of my streams, but I can't remember who it was. But a lot of the time I see people that post pictures of their tank, and it's an absolute nightmare. And they talk about their, maintenance routine or their husbandry regime, and it's just not something I would wish on my worst enemy. And then they say, well, my fish are breeding, so they must be happy. And I'm like, fish spawning is not necessarily like because conditions are ideal. Like, you realize that often spawning is a survival tactic, right?
Right.
It's their last ditch effort. Like, if you look at annual killifish that literally live in mud puddles, in footprints, their spawn, obviously the water is dog crap, or in some cases elephant crap. But they spawn. Yeah, that's not because that they're happy and the water conditions are awesome. That's because they know they're going to die, and their only attempt to continue the species is to spawn and hope that they hatch eventually.
Oh, Mike self-consciously touches the mustache. Or the best one that I see is when people say, and I have a friend who tells me this about her tanks, which give me heart palpitations. She goes, no, look at the fish. Look, they look so happy. As they're like gasping at the top. She's wondering how much ammonia should be in her aquarium. None of those things, they don't.
I did see, now that you mentioned ammonia, I believe it was June a while ago, did ask us a serious question. She said, what can I do about high ammonia from the tap? So high ammonia from tap water definitely stinks. I know that Zen Ginger has a problem with chloramines, maybe, or ammonia from her tap water. She'll correct me eventually, I hope. She was asking about it the other day. But running your water through something like a big carbon block will help some. If it's really bad, I'd recommend going with something like a reverse osmosis deionization unit to clean things up. But I mean, define high ammonia, I guess. I'm guessing you're looking at this one.
I mean, that's what goes on in my head.
Why so serious? Zen Ginger said she's got 1 part per million ammonia with chloramines, and it smells like public pool water on shock day. That is awful. So I mean, if that's a problem you have to deal with, you can get away with double dosing at the chlorinator, like Prime. I actually, for those of you, we were talking about the prisms on the 125 earlier up top, and the ferts I used from Colin. Colin actually sent out an email today to some of his customers and end users that Naloxy is working on a dechlorinator that doesn't smell like rotten eggs. And they were looking for testers. So if anybody is interested in testing a new product.
But if it doesn't smell like rotten eggs, how will I know not to drink it?
Well, some people just have
to taste test it?
to learn the hard way. I mean, you're probably welcome to.
I mean, yeah,
It,
I'll try
only
anything.
if you live stream it. That would be.
Oh man, that sounds like one of my dates.
Zen said she doesn't double dose, but she does overdose. So that's an option.
I was trying to think of like what I would do if I had ammonia coming out of my water, because I'm an idiot and I always try and like, you know how it's important to think about stuff and try and come up with creative solutions from your own head. It's also really important to double check those ingenious ideas with friends of yours with actual real world experience fish keeping. Because sometimes I come up with some pretty cool ideas, and sometimes I'm fixing to murder everything I have. So I was thinking to myself, what would I do, self, if I had water ammonia coming out of the tap? I'm like, well, I think I'd get one of those big old trash cans, right? And get a whole load of Anacris or something like that. And then use that to age my water. And then just maybe like one of those fast growing floater plants would suck up the ammonia.
That's a lot of. I mean, if you're going to go through that effort, you might as well just get an RODI set up.
But then you got to mess with your plumbing, yo.
If you have to set up an entire tank or tub full of plants, aren't you messing with your plumbing anyway?
No, you can fill that with a garden hose and let it come to room temp. It's just a giant bucket with wheels, my man. Maybe a pump in it if you're smart.
That's all I use for my RODI setup, is a giant bucket with wheels.
I know, but you have to hook your RODI unit up into the plumbing, don't you?
It just hooks up to the sink. It uses the same adapter that a Python uses.
I don't have a Python either. I still use buckets.
Yeah.
So I have
It
an
just threads the
RODI
sink.
unit. Are you saying I could just hook it up to my sink?
Yeah, it just threads onto the sink.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Easy enough.
Well, it's in the back of my pickup. I might have to fire that sucker up.
Well, let's see. I mean, if you grab it, we can take a look at it. We can help you figure it out real quick.
Okay, this is going to take a second, though. I got to put on, it's cold outside. In my room, if I keep my door shut, heats up to about 78 degrees.
We got nothing but time.
Well, good. I'm going to mute myself, and I'll be back in a few.
All right. George says his RODI is in his house. He brings 5-gallon jugs to change water. That is a workout. I used to, before I got a pump big enough to pump RO from the basement, I used to haul 5-gallon buckets upstairs to change water to 125, and I do 50% changes once a week. So that's about 60 gallons. 6 times 7 is 42. That's 420 pounds, roughly, to do about half a 125's worth for a water change. So it didn't take me very long to find a pump that could pump from the basement. 21st century. That's right. Get her, Paul. That's accurate. Lots of options out there. Then asked if it's chloramines, you still have to use prime. Anyway, so not if you're running a 5-stage RODI unit. Now a 4-stage, you may run into some problems with chloramine still. I know, up here for saltwater, a lot of people have algae problems if they're not running a 5-stage, and that's because of the chloramines in the water. So if they were running a 4-stage, you still end up with some of those getting by, but a 5-stage RODI unit should get you fixed up and help remove those chloramines. 20 steps isn't bad, George. That's still a lot of work, man. I hate hauling buckets. It's bad on your back. It is just a headache, though. So, would not recommend it. 6-stage, awesome. Yeah, I get by with a 5-stage. I thought about going to a 6-stage, There's just no need to it. I was checking the TDS coming out of my RO unit earlier, and it's starting to creep up, so I need to change out my filter media. That's the answer right there. 6 stages, 7 stages, recirc. There's all kinds of options. You can set up whatever kind of crazy RODI setup you need. Some people can go with a 4-stage. For the, I don't know, it's not really much of a price difference to go from a 4-stage to a 5-stage. So I would personally just go straight to a 5-stage myself. It's pretty cheap to move up in the world. Water is expensive here in California. 300 gallon a day. Are you? Oh no. I believe that out there in California. I don't know. You guys struggle here in the Midwest and Iowa. Water is fairly cheap. I don't really pay much attention to the water bill because it's usually not all that bad. But I could see that. And if you're in a place where you run into a problem where you don't want to use as much water, or you run into the issue of water being expensive, you can use some of that wastewater from our unit to do laundry, wash the dishes, water your garden, stuff like that. Or you can do like a recirc or a more efficient a second membrane boost pump. So there are options out there to make it a little bit more efficient and not cost quite so much. If you're really basic chloramine with gas off, yeah, it could. I don't know. I've done things the hard way or the cheap way or the long way for long enough, and I just for $300 I'll set up an RV unit and let the thing do the thing. There you go. Fill up the pool. I'm in Iowa. It is 15 degrees outside. There's no way I'll ever have a pool here. Some people do. But it's one of those things that you probably don't get a whole lot of use out of unless it's heated. Then maybe you can get a couple more months out of it, but not likely. 50 parts per million, that's pretty clean. Before my RO started creeping up, it starts about 450, 500 TDS, and coming out of the RO unit, it was about 4 or 5 for most of the time. Yeah, it's warm there. We get it.
Okay.
Shanna's back.
That's it. It's surprisingly heavy.
Is it full of water?
Yeah.
Well, that'll explain it.
So
I will say real quick, just before I forget, sorry to interrupt you. You had mentioned dual carbon blocks. Make sure that you are using a carbon block that will treat chlorine and chloramine, because there are some out there that may do one or the other. See if I can find a link quick.
This doesn't look like it hooks up to a sink.
See
This part?
Can't make the quality any better. So that looks like it basically tees into the plumbing. So let me send you hold on just a second. I'll get you a link. We'll get you fixed up here real quick.
yeah.
This is all it takes. I'm going to drop you a link in the chat. So this cheap little adapter will change it'll thread to your sink and then thread from your sink to your pressure line. So that plastic tubing, it's got like a little pressure fit shark bite type connection.
Okay.
So instead of that T that you've got there, run your input line from your sink using this connector. And there's a couple different types from that connector into your input for the first stage of that RO unit. And then you can so if you don't use a whole lot of RO water, It's like if you have a 35-gallon tote on wheels, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
you could hook your RO unit up to the sink for one day or overnight, fill up your tote, and then you can disconnect it from the sink and just put your normal regular sink little aerator on there.
Okay.
So that way you don't have to
I
tee
think
into the
that's
plumbing.
super easy. Okay.
Right.
Well, I'll
So
do
a lot
that.
of people tee into the plumbing because it makes it easier, so they don't have to connect it, disconnect it. I have a faucet downstairs that I just use, so I thread that thing on there and just leave it on there full time. But yeah, or you can, like you said, I think it says it's a garden hose utility sink adapter, so
Yeah.
you could hook your garden hose up to it,
Okay.
or whatever. So yeah, just threads right on there. Easy enough. They do make this. It's called a diverter valve, so you can leave this on your faucet full time, and then it just has a valve that switches it from your RO unit or to your regular sink. So I posted that in the chat as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So you got options, and that way, with just that, you could leave the Murloc line running to your RO unit. You can leave it there all the time, or you could simply it's a pressure fitting. You just press the compression fitting, and the hose pops right out. So pretty simple. God, Mark said his tap water is about 10 TDS.
Oof.
Most people would murder for that kind of water. Shannon, you should have decent water.
I
You're
used to
40.
have 14 PBS, but now I'm up in Clark County in Vancouver, and it's like 130. So
There you go. Geek Boy said some people connect their RODI to their washing machine fixture. Easy enough. If you want to do some plumbing, sure. Like I said, those cheap little fittings that I posted, they work fine too. So you have something a little more temporary, not so permanent. You don't have to be a handyman to put them together.
yeah, that's what I want. Something that I can just hook up and then take down. I don't know. See, the thing is, so I just picked up 2 tanks that are saltwater tanks that I was going to convert to freshwater because I'm like, no, I'm not going to do saltwater anymore because I don't want to hook up the RODI. But now oh man, this is kind of a game changer.
It's 100% a game changer, and it looks like you have an inline TDS meter on that RO unit.
Yep.
So I mean, which isn't obviously not necessary, but it's helpful.
Fun.
So yeah, just something to think about. Yeah, for all your, like, if you plan on setting up RO stuff, bulk reef supply might not be the cheapest place to find everything, but I don't know. They have literally everything you ever need, so it's a pretty good place to shop. You could set up a float valve and an auto shut off. So if you decided you wanted to hook up
float valve in the reservoir.
Oh, perfect. Then you're squared away.
I know. Oh man.
Geek Boy says salt is a trap.
But more options. I don't think I want to do salt. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I just stopped killing plants, so I'm pretty excited about that.
I mean, it definitely opens up your options as far as possibilities to grow plants. But I mean, you can talk to Ian, and Ian can help you get going on some saltwater stuff. I'm just saying, I bet he'd be more than willing to help.
Oh yeah, Ian's a pretty smart cookie, and I've kept saltwater stuff before.
Make it happen. George said he grew up on well water. Now I lived for a couple years. We had a well out of the Madison Aquifer, western South Dakota, and that was probably the best tasting, coldest water I've ever had in my life. It was delicious. Now I'm on city tap water. It tastes terrible.
All I can think of is George is saying the water was sweet, and I'm like, oh my god, it's lead pipes. You have lead pipes. That's why the water's sweet.
Well, could be. Plants love RODI. They do.
I didn't realize plants loved RODI. Huh.
So, I mean, I don't know. And this goes back to to Stephen and Kelly's stream they did forever ago on What's Your Plants about pH, GH, KH, but more often than not, plants do prefer softer water. If you look at like the African Rift Lakes,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of plants in them. And again, it's really hard water. That's why if anybody that has harder water is trying to set up a planted tank or an African cichlid tank with plants, Vallisneria are pretty good to go too. It's actually one of the few obligate aquatic plants and one of the few that are found in like Lake Tanganyika. Ian said you could do Caridina shrimp with RO2.
Oh.
Which I use, so for these shrimp here, these are, it's a mix of blue bolts. I need to do some culling. Obviously, you can see some that are a lot of white and some that are really, really dark blue. So definitely need to do some culling and a little more selective breeding in there to get something that I like a little bit better. As you, the one that just moved from the right to the left towards the middle, towards that catappa leaf, has some red in it, so definitely need to pull that out. But this is, I use RODY. This is just a little 10-gallon tank, maybe a quarter of an inch of flue ball stratum in the bottom. And then I use salty shrimp to remineralize to about 160 TDS. So super easy. June asked if there's an RODI system that I recommend. You can't go wrong with bulk reef supply. It's going to cost you, a little bit more than some other options, but it is an excellent, excellent unit, and they stand behind it very well. If you were involved in the Fishmas last year, Bulk Reef Supply donated one of their RO units to be given away. So I'd imagine, hopefully, Rico is successful at his, getting them on board as a sponsor and giving away another RO unit for that. So that'd be sweet. Yep. So replacement filters or canisters that have media that you can refill. I don't generally recommend something like the RO Buddy. It kind of uses like a proprietary filter cartridge, if I'm not mistaken. And that means if that company stops producing it, then you now have a fancy paperweight. Steve boy. Steven, it's not the GH's problem. The actual minerals that make water hard don't really hurt them in excess. Yeah. So ever since Stephen and Kelly did their stream on GH and KH and hardness and pH, I just literally reference everybody over to the Wet My Plants stream on that, because that's about as good of a discussion as anybody would really need with regards to plants. Sure, there's others out there that talk about it in a little bit more detail, maybe, but as far as putting things in a layman's term that everybody can understand, the Wet My Plants stream with Kelly and Steven was a definitely excellent one that I took a lot away from.
I need to go back and rewatch it, because I remember trying to watch it when they did it, and I wasn't there yet.
Let me see if I can find a link for it, and I'll post it. I'm sure there's plenty folks in here. They're on a lot of. It was one of the first episodes. It's a long time ago. Steven, you need to slow down. Propagatum, algae, crappy lights, CO2. Speaking of CO2, the Zen Ginger owes us a live stream setting up CO2. That's all I'm saying.
Speaking of CO2, the tank that I was going to turn from saltwater into freshwater, but might not now, I wanted to do as a high-tech planted tank, because it already has an AI prime light.
There you go. But I mean, if you already have an AI prime light and you already have the tank, you might as well leave it saltwater.
I know, but I just gave Ian all of the saltwater livestock and coral and salt and all of that, because I was done with it. I gave it all away. The hand meter, all of it.
That just means that he's babysitting it for you.
I'll have him babysit it for a while. Hey, Ian, do you need it? Oh, Ian doesn't need an RODI unit. He's got RODI tap water.
Geek Boy's trying to talk you out of it. The rest of us are trying to talk you into it.
Yeah.
Big Shrimp said he's got 2 units off Amazon, $150. Yeah, so I have a bulk reef supply, and he has a good point, sir. It's all about the filters and membranes that you use. I have a bulk reef supply unit, and then I also have a liquid gen 5-stage, and they're not quite identical, but you can run the same media in them, and that's a large part of it. So I get my media from bulk reef supply. I'm obviously not sponsored by anybody. I'm not paid to talk up bulk reef supply or Colin or anybody, but these are people that I've used and had good success with, so I recommend them. So yeah, if you're looking for, like I said, one of my RO units is a liquid gen off Amazon. I think I paid like $130 for it a couple years ago, and then I just used bulk reef supply filters in it. So, but excellent points, Big Shrimp. But thanks for pointing that stuff out. Appreciate it. That's one of the benefits of the whole live stream group chat mentality here is people are able to put their input even if they're not willing to come up on the stream, which is fine.
Sharing. This is like
info
sharing.
What's that?
This is quality info sharing too.
Right. At least I like to think so. I'm not saying
Don't listen to
it is
anything
for
I
sure.
say, but listen to Mike definitely.
Oh, that's a crock. These folks in the chat are putting out more information than I am tonight. I'm just babbling about how people are lazy, mostly.
Well, I mean, asking me to think for myself is kind of a big ask.
That is. Geek Boy said it's much easier for him to troll and chat.
Yes.
Vibes is back.
Right.
I don't know. I'd like to think that I not only encourage good information and sound advice, but push it myself. And I try to not be afraid to call people out on garbage. Oh yeah, you are. You're paying for bulk reef supply on it, but it is like you said, using quality filters, and going back to so Ian mentioned running 2 carbon blocks. Bulk reef supply offers a carbon block that will treat both chlorines and chloramines because not all of them do. So when you're looking at stuff like that, make sure that you are. I mean, it's a couple extra bucks to get one that treats for both. So I'll share my screen here so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Make this bigger. So you can see the universal carbon block is $19. This treats chlorines and chloramines, whereas the chlorine block only treats chlorines. $6 difference, but a lot of peace of mind. It's going to last. It'll not only last longer, but it'll be more effective at removing things from the water. Yellowstone. What's up, Yellowstone? Thanks for stopping by at 10:45 at night. Appreciate it. Not sure how much longer we'll run here. Do you have to work tomorrow? But it's been good conversation so far. Much appreciate you stopping up and chatting with us, and obviously everybody in the chat for hanging out.
So, what is my next step up from liquid fertilizer? The squirt fert.
Squirt fert? I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with squirt ferts. It's just a matter of you're spending more money using squirt ferts, which is fine. I mean, it's easy. If I was just doing a small tank, like if I was just dosing like a 10 or 20, I would probably stick to squirt ferts. But when you get up to like start looking at like a 40, 55, 75, switching over to dry fertilizers, like the kit that Colin offers,
right?
Which I'll post in the chat. you know, like I said, it's $20, free shipping, and that will last me over a year on my 125-gallon tank. Versus if you're looking at something like using Thrive or Easy Green, those are like, a big bottle is like 25 or $30. It says it treats like 2,500 gallons. I don't know how long that actually lasts. I've never just used a liquid fertilizer in my 125 and see like, oh, how long does this actually last? But you're getting much more bang for your buck, I guess. You're only paying $20 and it's going a lot further, lasting a lot longer. It also gives you some customizability, whereas like if you look at you know, the standard Thrive formula or Easy Green, they're a little bit higher in nitrates than maybe you want in your tank. So if you're looking at liquids, Thrive S is for shrimp tanks, and so it does have lower nitrates, and it's a slightly different formula. Easy Green right now only has the one formula, which is fairly high in nitrates. So if you switch over to something like you know, doing the dry ferts with the estimated index, you can control. You have more control over each component of that formula, right? So you can adjust your potassium, or you can adjust your sulfates as desired based on your tank. I'd say for the most part, something like Thrive or Easy Green is the 90% solution as far as hitting the right mix and being able to adequately provide nutrients to your plants. It does come at the, cost of convenience, though.
Yes. I'm familiar with paying that cost.
So I mean, you may be offsetting the cost, but if you're selling plants at swap meets or something like Fishtoberfest, or you may just be eating the cost for the sake of enjoying the hobby. So I don't know. Like Zen Ninja was just asking me the other day about using EI dry ferts on her 40. A $20 pack of ferts from Cullen would probably last her 2 to 3 years on a 40-gallon tank, even running highlight, CO2, the whole shebang. I still have, I found, so when Cullen first started shipping fertilizers out years ago, it was basically a Ziploc bag with a sticker that he slapped on the side of it instead of his fancy packaging that he has now. And I still have a pack of potassium nitrate from him in one of those old school bags. So they last forever. They don't go bad like the liquid fertilizers. I think so. If you were to mix your own liquid, if you got like a pack of dry ferts and mixed your own liquid similar to Thrive, you'd have to use basically like an antibacterial, something like glutaraldehyde, to inhibit bacterial and algal growth in there, because it's basically just water with a ton of nutrients. Whereas like your dry ferts, as long as it's dry, it's good. It's never going to change. It's going to stay the same forever.
I do appreciate that.
So Mark asked if they ship outside. You can buy his stuff on Amazon. I'm not sure. I don't live outside the U.S. Obviously, if you couldn't tell by my accent. I'm not sure exactly where he ships. It is available on Amazon, though, so that may give you some insight on if he can ship to you or not. Let me see if they actually have a shipping policy. And I don't know, how far are you from Albany, Shanna?
From Albany, Oregon?
Yeah.
Like 2 hours. Not
Okay.
far.
That's where Colin lives. So he's not far from you.
What?
Yeah.
Field trip.
Yep. So, and he makes all his stuff in-house. Bottles Thrive. It's got some pictures on Facebook if you ever want to see his setup. So, pretty local, handy, all US based stuff. If you're into that, if you want to send your money to China, I won't judge you. What's that?
I wonder if I've met him. Do you know if he goes to any of the local stuff like Fishtoberfest or the swaps or?
I can show you his picture and see if you recognize him. I don't know. His kids into racing like go-karts and stuff, but I don't know if he goes to the swap meets or anything. let's see. It looks like he did go to AGA back when they were up there, but I don't think he went to AGA, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that would have been cool.
Let's see, present harps. Over here. We'll do this. So that's Raj. Colin Grice is the extremely white-looking dude next to Dennis Wong. And that is Chance Kramer on the right side, if you're familiar with Chance. He lives in Florida, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, he was scaping at Aquashella in Chicago with Shanna, not on her team, obviously, but I think he was there while she was scaping.
Oh, cool.
If
No, I
remember right.
haven't met him. I'll need to change that.
So there's, yeah, so Colin lives up by you, not too far away.
Yeah.
I don't know where Raj lives, and then Dennis is in Singapore, obviously.
I'd still go visit him if he'd have me.
Yeah, so super cool stuff. George Ellery had a video from a few years ago about making your own ferts. So you can use the dry ferts to make your own liquid fertilizers to pump. You have to do some gonculating and stuff. And then, like I said, you can't make them that'll store long term because you need like I don't know, more or less like a stabilizer and some sort of like antibacterial type stuff. Looks like he was at ASWAP meet. No, that's AGA 2018. Sorry. I don't know if he's been to any swap meets up there in the Oregon area.
Wait, New York?
No.
Oh, okay.
Up in the Oregon area. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, what? Hold on. Did I get myself on the wrong side of the country?
Nope. He's in
I
Oregon.
hate it when that happens.
Anyway, so that's Colin.
Very cool.
Anyway, I'll probably give this hang out 5 more minutes if anybody has any questions, and then I am going to call it a night because I have to work tomorrow. Walter White, not far off from it. I've got a handful of different powders, and we were talking. I don't think George was here yet. We were talking gram scales earlier, and piles versus lines, and
Oh my gosh. It was so hard not to say inappropriate things.
I mean, it's after 10. I kind of set the line at like 10 my time. Like after 10, anything's fair game. But before that, I try to keep it fairly tame, I guess, and on topic.
Yeah, I try and behave myself when I'm on other people's channels.
George used to mix all kinds of stuff together. Well, you're alive today, George, and we're glad you're here. So I was in one of George's streams the other day, which I hadn't watched one of George's streams in a long time, so it was nice to get an update on his stuff. He's got some cool stuff going on. And I know he was talking to Dr. Anthony earlier about trying to source some Ultim Angels, which I don't know, getting especially wild caught stuff out of Brazil is tough. Obviously, it's so you'll notice largely with angels and cories and plecos, particularly now that there's so many bans on exporting stuff and it's so restricted that it's seasonal. So if you ever look at a distributor list or a wholesale list or an import list, they may have like only a few basic cories for a few months, and then like for 2 months they'll randomly have like a ton of wild caught cories. That's because it's all seasonal when they collect that stuff and when they can ship it out. So wild Ultim Angels, good luck. I do know there's a guy in Minnesota that I'm friends with that has some Ultims spawning. I don't think he's successfully raised fry from them yet. So good luck. One of these days, and I thought about doing it in my 125 here. I like the Leopoldi angels, and I know not everybody does. They're not anywhere near as common as Ultims. They don't get the size as Ultims. I don't know. I just like the shape of them. The color, the size is a little more conducive to a normal sized tank versus something that you have to fit Ultims into.
Yeah, Ultims don't they get like the size of dinner plates, like huge? I think
Yeah,
Kenny
gigantic.
has some.
Yeah, they get, I mean, 15 inches from top to bottom. I'd say I don't know what the official size is, but I mean, well over a foot top to bottom. So quite large, far larger than anything I want to keep. You do look cool. Like if you get some nice mature adults colored up, and they look super awesome. June wants big angels. June's got big tanks for him though. 125. I've got that 180 in the basement, and I've had that thing for almost 3 years now, and I haven't done a damn thing with it. It just sits down there empty.
Big tanks are intimidating. Everything for them is so much more too, like cost-wise, investment-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think this honestly a 180, like a 6x2x2, is an excellent shape tank. It's the costs associated with setting it up and running it are a pain. So I can see that a 110 tall would be perfect for if you had like a pair. I would put like a pair in a 110 tall, like adults. If you had a small group, they grow fairly slow, I think. If you get a small group, you'd be like a 110 tall. What is it, like a 110 extra high, I think is what it's considered. A friend of mine has that tank. He actually just traded it to another friend of mine. Can't remember the dimensions. 48 by 18 by 30. So 4 foot, 18 front to back, and 30 inches tall. So definitely lots of room for them. 20 Wildcat Ultims. That'd be impressive.
Wow.
That would be beautiful. I would love to see that. Do you have pictures of that on your Facebook page or anything there, Dr. A? I'd be curious to see that. I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna look quick. Hopefully you have pictures of it. Photos. Maybe. I'm not seeing anything. Let me down here. Had my hopes up for a minute. Digging. I don't see it right away though. I'll leave it alone for now. George is trying to beat him. Good luck, George.
I
hope
want to
you
see
find
what
him.
George would do with Ultim Angels. I would love to watch that.
I bet he could do it, no problem. He has fun out in the garage there. They just take so long. I feel like everybody I've talked to that's either bred them or tried to breed them, it's just a long process.
How long do they live?
Ultims? Oh, geez, I don't know. That'd be a question for Dr. Anthony. He'd probably be at quite some time. I mean, I've had common angel fish for, God, 4 or 5 years before.
Oh, wow.
Personal Facebook, yeah, I don't have any personal Facebook. So, but I'd love to see him. That would be super cool. 10 years in captivity is what Dr. Awesome said.
That's a long time.
So
it's hard not to get attached to a fish that long. It's
right?
nighttime at my house. The tank lights went off.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I mean, you figure even if it takes, you get them young, you get a small young group, you pay some cash for them. If it takes 4 to 5 years to get them to spawn, if you get one spawn a year, I mean, you're going to distribute a lot of fish, hopefully, from that pair that you got. And you know, if you're into breeding fish, now this is kind of like, that's the kicker. You have to be into breeding fish for the sake of breeding them. A lot of the times, the initial bill, there can be some sticker shock associated with fish. But if you think about it, so if you look at a a small group of 6, we'll say like L134s. You might pay like $50 a piece for juvies. So you're looking at $300 for a group, plus shipping's probably going to be another, we'll call it $50. So $350 for the group. So that, I mean, that's a lot of money up front. But if you get one spawn, even if you only have 10 fish that you can sell out of that one spawn, and you sell those at $50, I mean, that's 500. You're already in the green. So it's just, it sucks to spend the money. And then, I mean, there's always a chance if you're not buying like a proven pair or proven group, like, oh, I got 5 males. That's super awesome. Which there used to be a somewhat local zebra plico breeder, so L046s, that was, she would only sell males. She'd keep all the females for herself and would only sell males because that kept her from having any competition in the area.
That's a dirty pool trick.
It worked for a while. It worked for a while until somebody else was like, fine, I'll ship some in from somebody else. And now there's zebra prices have gone down fairly substantially, I think, slowly over the years, but compared to what it used to cost, they're pretty cheap, relatively speaking, obviously. But I think it's 11 o'clock here. I'm going to catch some sleep here. I appreciate you stopping and chatting with us.
Thank you so much for having me and for teaching me so much about plants and
God.
about plants and fish.
No, it's a pleasure. And like I said, the goal is to at least teach one person something useful in each stream or each video. And if I can't teach you something, I at least inspire you to, or motivate you to maybe go look into something a little bit more. So hopefully it worked. If not, we at least had a good conversation. Hopefully someone in the chat found something useful out of it. And if you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to find me on Facebook, email me, mike.allthingsfish@gmail.com. I'm on the Get Gills page, post on Get Gills on Facebook. I'll see it there. And or the Discord. If you're on the Discord at all, Zen Ginger could probably share the chat. We do talk on there fairly often. That's probably either the Get Gills or the Discord's probably the quickest way to reach me if you had a question. Otherwise, until the next stream, hope you guys have a great night. Shanna, thanks for the chat. Always a pleasure having you on. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Have a good one.
Good night.